Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Mind Management Mentors podcast. I've said this on every podcast, and I'll start it the exact same way that I always do. I'm a big believer of if it's in the mind, it can be managed. And we're going to talk about something that I'm passionate about. And I come from a place from experiencing this one, Mark, because I knew what great culture was when I worked at Royal Caribbean. I worked at Royal Caribbean for 13 years, and to be fair, they did have a fantastic culture. Some ships were different and things like that, and they didn't have the right culture, but it always got brought back to what a good culture is. And I'm going to put you out there as an authority on culture. But before we go into that, Mark Millar, tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and what do you do?
Well, that's quite an introduction. So, Mark Millar, my business now is M Coach. So I'm a business coach and advisor. So I am helping senior either business owners or leaders or management teams on that business journey and try to get them. Well, typically people are either trying to make more money or they're trying to make their business more valuable for exit at some point, or they just want more time. And that's typically one of the three areas, because the business is either just dominating their entire life and the whole enjoyment piece is gone out of it. So typically that's what I do now. But I guess what I bring to the party really is my 30 years of running my own business. So it's that real life in the trenches, tried and tested learning that is what I'm bringing, hopefully, to a client that they'll appreciate.
When you say 30 years tried and tested, how many tried and tested and didn't work options do you bring to the table as well?
So it could be things I've learned and developed that are good to follow,
yeah,
or it could be things that I've done that you shouldn't follow. Either I think are quite valuable. It's sometimes is valuable to understand where some mistakes have come from, and if I can help people share some of my mistakes as much as the learnings, then I think both are valuable. Yeah. I remember we did we're working with a client years ago. I'll tell you more about it shortly, but and you ran a very, very successful company doing lift maintenance. You'll all know the names, but I spoke to him and said, quite an interesting journey you've had, and I asked him how he was so successful, and the comment that stuck with me was, I made loads of mistakes, but as long as I make 51 good decisions, 51% are good decisions, and only 49 are mistakes, then I'm heading in the right direction. And I just thought that was quite a nice kind of way of thinking, rather than I have to make every decision I make is correct, which I thought was just always stuck in my head. So made plenty of mistakes, but obviously generally went in the right direction.
I love that. And the gentleman that ran a lift business, how was his business? Up and down?
Yeah. I can't think of a quick enough retort to that.
You said it was a lift business. I'm like, oh, I'm jumping straight into how is the business up and down. I couldn't wait for you to go.
Yeah, very good.
So, but the reason we wanted to have a chat, and I do, because it's the Mind Management Mentors, I like to help people manage their minds. We want to look for those solutions. And we talked about a subject, and I'm like, that's a conversation that we can have for the podcast, for anybody who's maybe running their own business and missing out on the importance of culture. So we're gonna throw you out there to the wolves today, Mark, as an authority on culture and why culture matters, and why is it very much misunderstood and just not worked. I think culture is one of the biggest things that's missing in most businesses. To be fair, I genuinely do. And why is it overlooked? So let's start with Why is culture important, and what difference would culture bring to most businesses?
So, is culture important? I guess the answer is beyond yes. It is so important, and I always think when you're looking at a business, okay, the first thing is to be profitable. You have to be profitable, because if you're not profitable, there is no business. But I think almost beyond profitability is cash flow. So businesses need to be absolutely focused on getting their cash flow and the profitability. But they're almost a given. It's a bit like breathing, I think. It's a bit like oxygen that you breathe. You don't get up in the morning and just think, I have to breathe. It's a given. So if you go on the basis that profitability and cash flow are so important, because without that, nothing happens. Just put that as a given. After that, I think it then becomes culture. It's that important.
So you're wow. So we're going right up with cash flow, and the profitability. You're going to go right underneath there, culture.
If you have culture is the tool, I believe, that you use to manage energy. It's actually energy is the important piece of the business. So it's cash flow and profitability and energy. A business without energy is pointless. And it's also your own energy as well as your team's energy. So I think it's that important. And it's amazing how many businesses you'll go and speak with, and you'll ask them for their strategy or their business plan, and they will have it and they will give it to you. And they'll have their marketing plans and their sales plans and all the projections and their cash flows and all the rest of the good stuff that you'd expect to see in a business plan. But I don't think I've yet seen a business plan that has a section about managing the energy in your business. And if we're saying it's that important, cash flow, profitability, and the energy, which is managed through culture, I believe. Why is it missing? It's that important.
Where does that energy start?
So I think often business, if you're a business owner, or indeed if you don't have to be an owner, you can, if you remember the day that you applied for a role or a job, a dream job, and then the letter comes in. I'm showing my age. An email comes in and says, you've got the job. That excitement is you're so happy and delighted because it's something that you wanted. So your energy is up there. Or if you started your own business, you maybe had to battle against common sense. Sometimes it says, I just want to start my own business. I've just got this burning desire, which is part of my story, which is what I did. I just wanted to start my business. Your energy is high, and it's amazing what you can do if you've got energy. But life, I think, has a knack of just sucking the energy, unfortunately, out of you. So you have to positively manage that if you want to keep that success. Because at the beginning, it's managed to get you through so many hurdles. So it's such an important piece. And then the bigger piece is, once it goes beyond yourself, is how do you then manage the energy in the people you start to bring in on your teams? How do you get them as passionate and as excited about the thing that made you excited? And that's done through culture, is how you get them energized to buy into the vision that you've got in the first place.
Do you think businesses are failing at that? Or
Yep.
Do you think there's a lot of businesses that are missing out on that?
I think almost every business doesn't know how to do it. So loads and loads of businesses have what I would call tick box culture.
Tick box. Oh, there is a tick box culture. It's terrible. It is bad. It is bad. I know they have to do certain things.
I mean, I had a conversation with somebody over a year ago, and I was speaking to the board, and we got onto the conversation about culture, and it was very much we do culture. So I challenged And I said, so demonstrate to me how you have a culture. And so they what they came back with was, well, we have our 7 core values that we live and die by. So my next question is, what are they? And how many did they name? 3. So so my comment was if I was to live and die by something, they would be tattooed on the inside of my eyelids. I mean, there's no way I couldn't recall them if I truly lived and died by those core values and principles. So it was nonsense. So I didn't get a very good reaction, and the CEO at that point was like, "I'm going to show you." So we got up, and he said, "Let me take you through." It was in a hospitality environment, so there was a front of house and a back of house. So we were meeting front of house. So he took me back of the house, and typically in hospitality, the kind of office, you'll know from cruise ships, tend to be, get a bit of an afterthought. But we went through, and they were beautiful. He had beautiful offices. They'd clearly put a lot of thought into it. Nice looking offices, kind of an open plan, almost a breakfast bar, kitchen area for the staff. All very nice. And a kind of a lounge area where people can kind of chill, and all the kind of buzzwords on the wall and all the rest of it. And he almost went, ta-da! And you're like, you're missing the point. This is not culture. You don't get culture by giving people free biscuits, by giving people, you have to believe in the culture, and it's a knack to getting people to believe, not recite. So I think there's a difference between people being able to recite your values and people actually believing in your values. It's an emotional piece. And I think that the few companies that can get that piece right, where people actually would fight for those values, if somebody was to slag them off or whatever, then you're getting somewhere. And so few people do that. And if it's such an important piece of managing the energy, I believe, in an organization. Not many people know how to do it. But then equally, why should they know how to do it? It's not a criticism. It's not something that people get to do every day of the week. It's such a, normally people will go into an organization and the culture will just be presented to them. So why should people know how to create a culture and embed it into a business? Because it's not an everyday thing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that some businesses don't define their culture. But every single business has a culture. It's just whether or not you're in control of it or not. So I think you have to be in control of your culture because you want it to be positive in your business. And if you're not in control of it, it will form itself. And it's probably going to be a negative culture. And that's how I think you start to then get poor performance. That's how you get an atmosphere where people aren't willing to be open, be themselves. Becomes quite toxic. So you have to be in control of the culture and you have to be able to steer it. Because if not, it'll just do it by itself.
It's such a... Do you know what? And because I know it comes down to values an awful lot. And I think people still underestimate the power of values and understanding values in self and in businesses. But I've, strangely enough, walked in, because I do the emotional side. I work with the emotional side and the emotional health, anxiety, stress, and depression within businesses. And the amount of times I've walked into big corporate businesses and they've had the values on the wall, and I've looked, I'm like, they're pretty good values. I see those values, they're very good. And then you see people walking around, and I'm like, there's not one of them following one of the positive, even if positivity is one of the values. And then you see the staff walking around, slumped over, shoulders down, and I'm just like, there's your culture right there. It's that blatantly obvious when you walk into a business, isn't it? But businesses, because they get stuck into it, don't see it, do they?
And it's hard when you're in it, so it's not a criticism.
No,
but if you don't spot it, it's such a big thing that will hold you back from getting to where you want to do. If you cannot engage 20, 50, 100,000 staff that you have, whatever it is, if you can't get them engaged and bought into it, then you as the leader, it's a pretty lonely fight.
It is.
And then it starts to breed. Well, nobody gets it. Nobody cares as much as I can. Well, that's because you haven't managed to capture their imagination. But if you can, wow, such a powerful tool.
Do you find then, so that while we're talking about culture, and because I generally get brought into businesses, and I had to turn one business down because I even knew from the offset, I was like, that's not a culture I want to be a part of. It was quite prevalent that the owner of the business, to be fair, was an arse. I was never going to change. And I was like, that's just not the business. Nope. Because I was like, the problem with the business is the owner, not the staff and the employees and things like that. I don't even think they had culture as part of their business, to be fair. But you could automatically get that feeling when I walked into it. So I'll share some. Royal Caribbean had a great culture.
Yep.
Because, and I took a lot of things away from what I had 13 years at Royal Caribbean, from crew staff to activities manager to cruise director, working with some senior leaders. And one of the most powerful things that Royal Caribbean did do, and I think they got it from Richard Branson, was they gave you the best training possible so that you could leave Royal Caribbean and go and work anywhere in the world. But they were confident enough to train you the best way they can so that you'd want to stay with Royal Caribbean, it's a ballsy move, isn't it? It's a ballsy move, that. Train them up so that they can leave and work anywhere in the world, but hope the fact they stay with you because you've trained them the way that you wanted to done.
Okay.
And I can see you nodding there, Mark. So, Mark, share your thoughts on that then.
In terms of just going all in and training, I mean,
it was great training, but we all suddenly realized, we can go and work anywhere in the world, but we decided to want to stay with Royal Caribbean because we enjoyed what was happening.
So, I mean, I think it's definitely the right move, and you're you're trying to get people to believe, and I keep going back to this word, it's the difference between reciting and believing. So you as the leader, the owner, the whatever, you will have probably, maybe, you might have put your house on the line. You've certainly ignored your family or whatever to get where you made lots of sacrifices. But you want your whole team to be as invested in that whole vision. And if you don't have that vision, something that really drives you to, because there will be hurdles, but if you haven't got that vision that you're trying to get to, you're never going to get there. And so how do you get teams of people that you bring in to buy in? And it's not a quick process. So embedding a culture, I don't think, is a quick process. And I've spoken to a number of people in the past, and you go, you design something, it's like, excellent, thanks very much. And you go, no, that's the beginning. Now you have to embed it. And that's the bit that most people miss. Most people can put the words on a wall. And in fact, most people, when they realize that they need culture or need to revise the culture or whatever it is, one of the first things normally a CEO or an MD will do is, excellent, I'll give it to HR or marketing. Let them come up with it. So to me, that can just smacks of they don't understand that this is a C-level, C-suite conversation. It's that important. It has to come from the top. You can't outsource that to HR or marketing. You have to define that culture yourself at the top. Yes, you can give it to marketing or HR to wordsmith it or make it better, but it has to come from the top. Otherwise, you do not see the importance of culture. It's just a thing that we have to do.
Yeah.
It has to come from the top.
So with the importance of, because this is kind of very close to Maroslav's emotional needs, I've noticed that there is a really, because I work with emotional needs an awful lot, the understanding of Maroslav's emotional needs, especially within the business structure. And a lot of businesses miss out on that because that's the emotional, that's the touchy-feely part, right? A lot of people, I have found, this may be an overgeneralization, miss out on the touchy-feely, realizing the touchy and feely will probably create more of your profits and your cash flow, because people remember how they were made to feel. Now, with your expertise, Mark, how often do you see that focus on profitability and cash flow is focused on and missed out on the touchy-feely part?
So I think when you if it's your own business we're talking about, and somebody starts their own business, people do it because of a feeling. They feel there's an emotional thing there. It's not a practical thing. You want a practical thing? Get a job. But if somebody is wanting to be a leader or they want to have their own business, it's because there's a passion, there's a desire, there's something exciting about it, and there's a whole kind of roller coaster of emotions as you start a business, build a business. It then becomes a little bit more real, and then there will be challenges, and in fact you go right down into the doldrums. You have to expect all of that. But it's feelings and emotions that drive and make those businesses successful. Then what tends to happen is when businesses get to a certain size and scale, it becomes too hard. So they remove emotions out of the conversation and replace it with policy and procedure.
Yeah.
And so you go to big corporates, it tends to be policy and procedure that will drive all the decision making. And they remove the very thing that made them successful in the first place. Yeah. And very few companies manage, in my experience, is to do both. And if you can do both, because you do need the policies and procedures without question when you get to when you're trying to manage scale. So that's a given. But if you can keep both, then you hit on something I think quite powerful. So you have to do both. Keep that. Learn how to do the emotional piece. And I think the Richard Bransons of this world, the example you were giving, maybe as inspiration for the culture for Caribbean cruises, I think they're probably one of the few companies that have managed to keep both going. Yeah. The results just... I think the other thing is that a lot of people maybe think culture is about kind of a soft, fluffy piece that's nice, but culture is actually the source, I think, of a lot of commercial outcome. So if you want to manage so it's the source and outcome piece. You don't manage the outcome, you manage the source. The source is culture. So if you want more profit, go and manage the culture, and it will deliver you your profit.
Happy people will create happy results, right?
Big time.
So, as the business consultant and strategy, Mark, and before we go into some of the experiences that you've had, because you've got a really good backstory. I know we're talking about culture, but I do want to be able to touch on some of the things you did with your catering business. But that story when we first met, a lot of people don't realize how often, because I talk so much, they don't realize. It's not just because I talk so much, but because I'm always laughing and I'm always joking, which I am. A lot of people don't realize how much I listen and take in. So the second time we met, I pretty much said, "Oh, you do this, this, and this," and you were like, "Oh my God, I didn't even realize you were listening or paying attention." I'm like, "I'm always paying attention." So I want us to come to that story. So businesses right now, they're looking to work with Mark. You come in with a fancy title of business strategy consultant. It's a fancy title. I love it. Strategy. What's the first thing you are going to change within a business that's struggling with their cash flow? What's the first thing Mark's going to go for? The jugular.
So I think the first thing, I mean, if we're desperation stage, that's it's a bit like doing a triage. You got to come in and go just assess. But assuming it's not that stage, assuming it's slightly more, it's just frustrations building in. We've just not growing or progressing as quickly as we want to, or we're doing fine, but oh my God, it was so much easier 5 years ago when it just seemed to all work. Now it doesn't.
Right. Yeah, get that.
So my go-to is do you really understand the concept of why, what, and how? And do you really understand your context or your vision or your purpose, whatever you want to call it? And it's amazing how many people aren't literally staring at it every day. Like, that's what I'm about. That's what I want to do. this is why we're going through all the bits of pain.
Mm.
And so my go-to is that, and it's amazing how much focus that then gives everybody off the back of that. Because once you lock back into that vision or purpose, your to-do list becomes so different. Your to-do list, which probably is 500 items long, and you're trying to balance all these different priorities, your to-do list becomes quite different, and it becomes very focused, very deliberate, and a lot shorter. People are so surprised when they see it. So that would be my first thing to go to: is, are people clear on why they're doing it, not what they're doing? Everybody if you ask somebody, how are you, what do you do, they'll all reel it off. But then you'll ask them why are they doing it, it tends to go quite silent.
Joe, you're not wrong. Do you know, you are not wrong at all. The why is one of the biggest, and is there not a book out that says start with the why?
So
I'm sure I've seen it, right? I've read it. That's the start with the why. Simon Sinek, yeah, of course.
So I mean, I got taught the principle of it maybe 15 plus years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm an absolute believer in it. And I only came across this book about a year ago.
Oh, right. Okay, fair enough.
And I couldn't believe it, because, I mean, he articulates it beautifully, I think. So it's a similar, it's not quite, I use a variation of it, but the principle's absolutely the same. But if you can get people bought into the why, it's transformational.
Yeah, getting them bought into the why, absolutely.
And I've seen so many people. I was doing some training on a different thing that I do on some property investment stuff that I do, and they talk about the why, and they talk about it for about 4 minutes. Anyway, this is the crux of everything. So I mean, you're not giving it the importance. So this, it's a bit like the culture trying to outsource it. You have to be so focused on that why, and then that's why we're doing this. Everything else flows off it, and your to-do list looks so different, so much more manageable once you know that. So I think
why comes down to purpose.
Purpose, why, yeah, similar, yeah.
Yeah, you're right in the ballpark.
So for me, you're asking when you go into a business and what would kind of be the quick hit. So it's about making sure people understand or reconnect or focus back on their purpose. And once you have that, you've then got focus. You get people focused on the right activity. And then after that, it's about then managing your culture. So I think it's kind of those three are the kind of tend to be the main priorities. So it's about purpose, it's about focus, and then it's about managing the culture or the energy in your business.
I love it.
I think
absolutely. No, it is, and that's. I mean, what's some of the examples of the worst culture you've seen within businesses? Then, without naming the business, but you're more than welcome to if you want to. But could you give an example of a bad culture within a business? So that a business owner or a leader is listening to this going, wow, I didn't know what the signs of bad culture were.
Yeah, I mean, bad culture breeds, and I'm sure most people will recognize it, internal politics. So
if you've got bad internal politics, or you've got a indifference between people's language and communication within the business, would they talk happy about the business or say this manager's a walloper, this manager's a walloper? You've then got a bad culture.
I mean, it's one of the signs. I mean, it's. I mean, we've probably all experienced bad culture, poor culture, or just not brilliant culture. There's probably something quite different about brilliant culture and an environment where you not told to, but you want to go well and above what's being asked of you. Where you really want to make a difference. The exercise I've done with a few people is just challenge people and say, well, we've all probably experienced when we go into business or somewhere, and there's just certain people that light up a room, and you can't explain why, but they walk in and they just light up the room with their energy. But also the complete reverse is opposite is true. You can also get people who just, when they walk into a room, they're like vacuum cleaners, and somehow, I don't know how they do it, but they just
I know how they do it.
hoover the energy out of a room, and it's amazing. So one person can affect so many. And the challenge I often give to people is, tonight, go back home and write down every member in your team. Like literally write their names on a sheet of paper, including your own, by the way. And then just work out on that piece of paper who makes people miserable. I mean, and just, I wouldn't suggest you show that piece of paper to anybody, but just work out who makes people miserable. And then from that, really, you need to get rid of them. I mean, forget the practical piece, but they are, now get rid of them. Clearly, there are stages before that. You try and turn them around, or just try to understand. But the principle is they are so damaging. Don't tolerate it. Do not tolerate it, because one person can suck the energy out of 10, 20, 30 people. And you wonder why your business isn't going as well as it could be, because it could literally be one or two people. And by the way, if it's yourself that makes people miserable, you have to have a pretty candid conversation with yourself of how to stop that happening. Because it's holding it. I mean, you're paying all these people to perform, and if they're not performing because of the culture, the energy, and it could be you, then somehow you got to. It's a bad investment paying all these people. You need to sort that problem out.
You're bang on. We call them. What I've learned in the past is head towards the waterfalls, stay away from the drains, or head towards the head to not the waterfall. What's the go to the fountains, not the drains.
Yeah.
I've always considered myself a fountain.
A fountain. Well, yeah.
I cannot stand that, because I'm a high vibration person. And for anyone watching this, listening to this, it's like, well, what's a high vibration? So I work on consciousness, and I work on really working on positive emotional intelligence, not just emotional intelligence. Positive emotional intelligence, genuinely taking yourself away from the lower resonation of emotions such as hopelessness, as guilt, as resentment, and really pushing myself up towards courage is the tipping point. Courage for people is a powerful emotion. To have that courage to move into love and authenticity and gratitude and empowerment, which are really powerful positive emotions, which a lot of people don't understand the power of self-awareness. They genuinely don't. But I can now see drains a mile off.
Yeah.
And it's a question I ask myself now. Is that a drain, or is it something about me that sees the drain? But I'm just like, I can't be around that person. I can't be around that person. Family members is the same as well. And I do worry. I always ask the question. I asked another guest on, is that judgment or is that self-awareness? And someone said self-awareness. It's not judgment, because I know judgment costs lots of money in business and in life. But no, having the understanding of who the drains are within your business has to be. And Mark, there's one thing I'll touch on as well, which is something that always resonated with me, was people don't leave companies, they leave bad managers. Yep. Or bad management. I don't think I left Royal Caribbean. I think I left bad management. Because Royal Caribbean was great. It was something within the structure that changed within me that was like, this is not for me anymore. It's time to move on. And I think that was a powerful part. But I always remember, people don't leave companies, they leave bad management.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that sit with you, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, people want to feel that they belong.
Yeah,
Generally, they want to, and they want to do a good job. People rarely come to work and right, okay, let's do a bad job today. I mean, they want to do a good job and they want to be recognized. But recognition isn't about the paycheck.
it's not.
Um, of course, there's a bit of that for sure, but that's just a practical piece. They want to feel that their opinion counts, that they
heard contribution.
value. So yeah, I've forgotten the question, but but so I think the whole kind of, but people will then look to their management for that recognition, for that. They want to progress people. People want to, they don't generally don't want to be doing the same thing for a year after year after year. They want to feel they are progressing somehow. That doesn't always have to be promotion, but it could just be by getting more trust given to them or a bit more. Like, I'll tell you what, go and speak to so-and-so. I trust their opinion. I mean, there's loads of ways to show and progress. So I think the management piece, I mean, so you say they leave bad management on companies. I mean, companies are made up of people. So, I mean, a company is just nothing. It's just an entity without people, it's nothing. So
energy. So you're bringing it back to the energy again.
Yeah. So you can't blame the company generally because the company is made up by people. So it has to be the management somehow or the leadership. And again, there's a whole difference between leadership and management. And it's amazing how many good managers get made leaders, but they're completely different things. Different characteristics are required to be a leader rather than a manager. But it's amazing, manager get promoted, another management job, and then before you know it, they are the leader of something, and that's a different skill set.
It is. People don't realize that the difference between management and leadership.
So I rightly or wrongly, I thought I was a good leader, not a very good manager, but that was me. And there's no right or wrong, I don't believe. It's just being aware of, so I believe a point about leadership is to inspire, I think. Management is about getting shit done.
I always think the biggest misconcept for people and a really powerful way to explain like the leaders within the business structure or the leaders considering your business as a ship. The ship's not going to set sail without the staff rowing the oars.
Yeah.
The managers have to be saying, we need to row the boat. The leaders are up in the crow's nest going, we need to go in that direction because I can see there's a storm there and I can see there's a storm there. So we need to go that way. So leadership is all the way at the top. So you're not down with the staff, but you are looking for the direction. And that's how we have the confidence in the leadership, knowing that they're looking after our best interest by saying, this is the way we're going to navigate.
Yep.
So a lot of people miss out on, and I've seen leaders come and sit down with the staff and the employees and stuff and want to be down there because they want to feel like they're part of the team and they're just in it with them. But it's not, is it? It's genuinely that understanding. We need you up there, making sure that we're safe down here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's the whole trust piece. You've got to trust that they're looking out for you, and they've got to trust that you're rowing as hard as you can. Everybody has to trust.
Yeah.
But again, I think that comes down to having a clear purpose, understanding what we're all got to focus on. We don't need individuals focusing on their pet projects over here. It's like, this is where we're going. We've all got to do different things. So in my business, which was a catering business, I didn't need my chefs worrying about the marketing. I didn't need my marketing team trying to suggest recipes. We all got to do different things, but we've all got to be focused on where we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
So, and trust, and occasionally, we departments would let each other down, and it would start to hurt. And if it became one department was consistently letting the team down, then we need to fix that department to bolster it back up so we're all going in the same direction at the same pace, because it has to be at the same pace.
Yeah.
So if your left hand rowers are going quicker than your right hand rowers, then you're going to go round in circles.
I love that. Yeah, fantastic.
Just made that up on the spot.
No, it doesn't matter. Best leadership is made up on the spot. Walk away. I'll let that one sit. Let that one go. Oh wow, it works. It's fine. So let's talk about the experience that you had, because I thought it was a fascinating story that you were appointed by the Royal Council to do catering. So explain about Mark Millar's days back in the day by royal appointment. What was that all about, Mark?
So my business that I started my business when I was 26, I think it was, back in 1993. So it was a catering business. So I'd been in hospitality up until that point, but I don't know why. There's just something in you sometimes that I just wanted to have my own business. Doesn't necessarily make logical sense, but it's just an itch you have to scratch. So I thought, okay, so if you want to have your own business, what are you going to do? And I remember having a word with myself because I'd been thinking about this for several years. I want my own business. I want my own business. And then I had a bit of a kind of check-in moment to say, either shut up and put that silly thought out of your head, or go all in and do it. So I went for the all-in option. So it didn't matter what I did, but for me, it entered, well, it probably should be something to do with hospitality. That's what I know. And then I looked at my bank account, which kind of narrowed down the options considerably. So anything that needed any kind of capital investment or buying of premises or whatever was just not an option. So those days, literally outside catering became the easiest entry point into the market. And so it was a side hustle. So I took it from a side hustle, and I literally was using my tip money to buy the food, to then go and serve either dinner in somebody's house or do an office sandwich lunch in between my main job. It took me a year to save up £5,000. I found another chap who came in and brought his expertise and £5,000. So we had £10,000, went to the bank, doubled our money. Doubled it. They gave us a loan. And that allowed us to then leave our jobs and go all in. And then from there, we bought our first company, which again allowed us just to get enough of a foothold in the market. And then we grew it. So we worked together for about 5 years. I then bought him out. We then acquired another 3 businesses, I think it was. And then we grew it further. And then we got to the point where we did a merger after about 10 years or so. We did a merger. We brought 2 companies together. That brought in a lot more expertise. We became a lot more strategic and focused on what we were trying to do. We then grew and grew. We were the market leader in Scotland, so within the niche that we operated in. And then we were fortunate enough to be granted with a royal warrant for catering services to the late Queen. Yeah. Which, for a team, because it was a team effort, it wasn't me. The team effort, I mean, that's just such a cool thing. And talk about managing energy and pride and all the rest of it. I mean, that's just an amazing thing to do. Only company in Scotland to have that. Only 1 of 3 in the UK. So very precious to us for lots of reasons. Yeah. But mainly internal and for creating pride. And we became, so we did the garden party in Edinburgh, which is the main reason that we got that warrant. We then sold the business in 2013 to an American company. So again, that was major kind of milestone. And then I stayed on for 5 years, so leading the business for the company we sold it to. So we found ourselves, our little company, we were part of a $2 billion entity. So you have to learn very quickly to show up quite differently, act differently, speak differently to get the same decision. The decision you could have made the day before in 2 minutes.
How frustrating, right? So how did you manage that for yourself, going from making all your decisions and saying this is a decision we're making, to then have to go through the hoops to get the decision that you? Oh my God! How did you manage that?
So it's a bit of a mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it probably took me at least 6 months, if not a year, to really get my head back into driving mode again. Because what you potentially do is you just kind of sort of sit back a bit and go, well, I'm not in charge anymore, and then you become a passenger, and that didn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
So again, I used the exact same framework: the why, the what, the how, and just did the whole exercise on myself, and just to kind of clear my head and regain my purpose, get my focus, and then I had to then build the team back up because they were a bit demoralized. So with the whole thing, so it's exact same principles. And then once I got my head clear on it, and again, because you have to manage your own energy, a really dangerous place to lead a business is from low energy. And if you're just thinking, oh, can't do this, then you just leave, get out of the way, because somebody else will do it better. So I had to just use all of that exact same stuff that I share with people today. And I did that for 5 years. They then sold out globally to an even bigger company. So we've then found ourselves part of a 20 billion euro mammoth. And again, even greater terms of just the next level up of how you have to conduct yourself and show up and all the rest of it. Stayed with them for 5 years as well. So it's 10 years running the same business while not owning it. But again, it's just, I had to get my head into that space, same tools, why, what, how, and then get everybody to buy into it. And we not only had to get our teams to buy into it, because there were doubters within our own team, but they were such a precious part of our success that it was so important that we kept them. If everybody starts bailing out, then that's not good.
No.
So we had to get them to buy in and believe in the next piece of the journey, which is actually quite hard because they were such ambassadors for our vision and our culture when we were our own independent business. To then sell to somebody else, you then having them buy into your culture and values is important, but it can also be hard because they're so bought into this. How do you get them to change and accept change? And we have to do it twice. And then you also have to get your clients to buy into that.
Change is not easy, by the way. Change is not easy for people. It is quite it's traumatic experience for a lot of people going through change.
It is, and that we've had to do that on a number of occasions. Because if you don't, I mean, change is going to come anyway. Yeah. And I always remember liking it it's you're on the rail track. So, and there were some people there that just wanted to say, nope, I'm not moving from the rail track. Well, you're going to lose. So I said, so what you have to do is not to stand in front of the train. You have to learn how to change the points to make the train go around you or start to influence where the train goes. And that's what I think we managed to do. So we both times with the company we sold to and the company we got sold to, both times we managed to get our head in the right space using the same frameworks, how we act and how we still delivered our same original vision. We didn't change our vision. We kept it. We just had to get people to buy into it. We had to get the parent companies to buy into our belief. Quite hard.
I believe, yeah.
Very hard, because typically they would expect us to fall in line with what they wanted. But after a time, they started to believe and see the benefit and the passion and the power of what we were doing. Made all the difference. And they allowed us to then carry on our journey and then invested in us to allow us to keep going on our journey. And then I left there about 2 years ago and now trying to help others.
Yeah.
On their journey.
Did you get to serve the Queen?
Yeah.
Did you? You personally or your team?
Team. But
that's good leadership. You let the team serve the Queen. You just dive in and go, this one's for me today, boys and girls. I'll make.
Yeah. We got to see some quite special events and some, very close proximity. Which again, in fact, I remember, so the garden party, which is one of the events we did, is very intense piece of work, like super intense. And we had, I can remember this one chap who was our logistics manager. Sadly, he's passed away, but logistics manager, and he came and said after doing one of the garden parties, which is a mammoth event, 8,000 people, and he said that's the best team bonding exercise we do every year. And he's just been knocking his pan in for the last however long month to create this event. But the bonding and the team building and the camaraderie, it's not about taking people out and getting them drunk. And a lot of people confuse that with culture. And it's like, oh, yeah, we look after teams. We had a barbecue in the summer and we do a Christmas night out. Missing the point. That's not culture. That's just an excuse because we don't know how else to manage it. And so for a member of our team to come and say, this is the best thing we do all year, and it's work. It's hard work. But because it pulled everybody in, it was a team effort to deliver something of that scale. I think that's quite telling.
I've got one final question for you, Mark.
Oh, your boots?
Maybe I've got two questions. Question number one, what is culture?
What is culture?
It's a good question. Because we've talked about the why we need a good culture, but what is culture?
So culture is just I guess it's a set of principles or beliefs. Or that's kind of worky and businessy, but it's kind of set of principles that we all agree to abide by to manage the behavior. And if you can manage the behavior or align behavior, this may be better. It will give you commercial outcome, but also by managing the behavior, that's how you manage the energy. So it's an energy piece. And again, would I rather have a team of two identical teams, one with an amazing strategy, but no energy, or would I rather have a team that didn't have a strategy, but were so energetic and up for it? Well, for me, no question, it'd be the energetic team because they will be so keen to learn a strategy. You've got both, but a team without energy it's just pointless. So energy is so important. So culture is just a way of managing the energy.
Perfect.
With energy, that's how you make pound notes.
Perfect. Love that. Powerful. Now, what top 3 things would Mark do or follow or implement to change culture in your first week working with a business? What 3 things?
I was going as a coach.
You're going in, somebody, let's say Barclays Bank's come to you, Mark Millar. I like Mark Millar because he did the Queen's banquet at Edinburgh. Barclays have come in. They found out, do you know what? We're making money. We're making profit. We want to do more, but our culture is wrong. But there's just something wrong with our culture. They've been thinking about working with Cudworth because he works on positive emotional intelligence, but they're thinking, no, Mark Millar's the man that's been speaking about culture, and I need him to come in and look at our culture. What 3 things would you change upon arriving at Barclays Bank to help them implement some major culture changes? Is that a curveball?
It certainly is. Thanks for the warning. So I think if you were to go into an organization like that, and it depends at what level you're going in at. So presumably you're not going in at the top of the tree. You're probably going in at some point within the organization. So the trouble with that is that they will have a culture that's probably set further up the food chain. So it depends if you're able to influence that. So sometimes if you can't influence that, that's fine. But if you're going in halfway through a massive organization, in your example, then you still have to be able to almost create a micro culture because you can't influence the main culture. Either way, I think it comes back to, do we understand why? What's the purpose? Do we have a purpose? So if we have a purpose, if we're at the top of the tree, it's what is the purpose for Barclays Bank? But if you're going in halfway through the organization down here, then what's our purpose within the bigger picture? You can still have your own team or department or division culture that you can set, because that will, just because the rest of the organization perhaps doesn't have the best of everything, doesn't stop you from having it. And if you can create that well, and effectively other people will start to want bits of it over time. So it shouldn't stop you from doing whatever you need to do. But again, I think it comes back to the same thing: is what's the purpose, either of the company or the division or the team, and also what's your purpose. I think that's an important piece. You have to understand your purpose. Then once you do that, then it becomes easier to understand what to focus on. And then it's how do you get people energized with all of that? And keep going back to that. Sounds a bit like a broken record, but it's the difference between people being able to recite your values and believe in them. And that belief part, that's the challenging bit. Is how do you get people to believe in it? And it's a pretty relentless banging of the drum until people really start to be able to buy into it. And part of the process is actually helping the teams come up with some of these things themselves. That's much more powerful than somebody telling you this is the culture, if you have that luxury.
Which is why, coming back to the original part of the podcast, you said you can't or shouldn't be running a business if you don't have the energy or the heart or understanding your why for it, because it'll not work. It'll be a challenge and a struggle for people.
So personally, I have been up, and then I've also had my downs.
Absolutely.
For absolute more than one occasion, for to the point, a couple of occasions I can remember literally resenting my own business. Not for a week, but I don't know, for a year. Is
that after being bought out, or was that towards?
Well before.
So where did that result? I know, because I know I'm mindful of the time, but quickly, it doesn't have to be quickly. But what was the resentment?
Just it becomes overwhelmed.
It does. Like, what's the point?
It was so stressful. The reward was minimal. The responsibility was enormous.
Yeah.
And then family things also play into that.
Yeah.
Mother got diagnosed with cancer, and just the whole thing just starts going, oh, this is too hard.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a case of, I'm just going to stop. And then I did the practical piece of, right, so okay, how do I stop? Literally, just work it out. And I realized I couldn't. I actually couldn't stop without losing everything. So it's a mindset thing where you go, well, that's not an option.
No.
Because I'm not prepared to lose my house over it.
Yeah. So
it was just a case of, okay, get your head, and how can you work your way through this? Same tools, like wow. Just, but it sounds so easy. Oh, just do that, but it's not. It takes time to get into that mindset, but just work your way through it, and then manage to work my way through it. And importantly, not just get the business back in control, but one of the things was I need to get back in love with my business. I need to enjoy this again, because I'm not enjoying it. And so I managed to get myself back into, this is cool again.
Yeah.
Such an important piece. I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, no, it is, because that would, for people running businesses, they have to understand the ups and the downs and things like that, and you will fall out of love with your business, which is why your why has to be so important. You're absolutely right. It does always come back to the why. Well, honestly, Mark, thank you so much for the interesting conversation, especially about the importance of culture, where it lies within the business structure, and how it can be missed, because I think that's a really important part. Businesses can become too focused on profits and cash flow. And the second the profits and the cash flow is not there, that's where the emotional outcomes are going to change within businesses, because that's where resentment comes. And these are all negative, disempowering emotional states, right, Mark? These are lower state consciousness vibrations. I'd love to recommend a book to you. Mark, I don't know if you know about consciousness and emotional states, but you have to, especially for the business that you're in, look into power versus force. Power versus force.
Force, power versus force.
Power versus force by Dr. I think it might be R. Hawkins. Power versus force. Powerful book. You'll read it and you go, "Oh, Mark, it'll change your life. It'll change your life. I'm telling you now, it'll absolutely change your life, especially within the businesses that you're going to go into and stuff." And then from that, you'll be like, "I think I now know how to change culture even better." Because if you can understand and see where the vibrational state within the business structure is, you'll see why there is no energy. Because it's all about energy balancing and managing that energy. So you'll absolutely love it. Mark, is there anything else you want to share today?
I don't think so. I've enjoyed the conversation, and I quite fancy asking you some questions, but that's clearly
Go
not
for it. No, Mark, ask me some questions. Oh, I love this. This is like, oh, I'm getting interviewed on my own podcast. Mark, ask me some questions.
Well, I mean, I don't know that much about you because we've only met recently, but I did listen.
I know
to
everything about you, Mark, and I've met you twice.
Yeah. But I did listen to some of your stuff, and clearly you've had your downs.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you've had to, get yourself out of that.
Yes,
which is impressive because
had to. It was an emotional breakdown. It was a nervous breakdown many years ago because I didn't understand failure, what it meant. I thought I was a positive guy, but clearly didn't have the mindset for it. I went on a deep dive, understanding mindset, consciousness, emotions, what depression actually is, not what I thought it was. I think a lot of people are still coming from a place of not knowing what depression is, and it's still a scary word. Actually, no, we all get into depressed states.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean to say that you're going to. I think I remember going to the doctors and saying, "I've got this conversation. I just feel like I'm going mental." And the doctor said, "Oh, I can give you the phone numbers for the Samaritans." And I'm like, I'm not thinking about killing myself. What do I want to call the Samaritans for? Oh, it's nice to have someone to talk to. I'm like, no, I want the conversation to go with. We've got antidepressants. I'm like, nah. I genuinely Googled about depression. What's the quickest way to get rid of depression? And NLP, really good formats for, and it really does. It started me on a massive journey, and I genuinely help people understand their internal conversations, the languages, the labels, and I would consider myself a passionate advocate of language, internal and external, of how it'll make a massive difference in your life. I think that's a powerful thing of understanding language structure, what you're actually saying. And I feel like I've had the matrix opened up, Mark. So that's the reason I know who I want to talk to and who I don't want to talk to, because I'll listen to the language structure. And for a person who failed English several times at a GCSE level to now understand language like I understand language, I'm like, holy shit. We should have been taught this in school. And I think a lot of people would agree with a lot of the things. Why are we not taught these powerful things at school about understanding emotions better and understanding conversations and monkey mind and emotions and things like that? Well, that's where I come from.
So, I mean, just when you mentioned language, I mean, language is an important piece of the puzzle, for sure.
Huge. Literally, maybe I could say, I'll know what you're working with clients. I'll know in 45 minutes. Technically, I'll know in 10 minutes what your problem is, because you'll have already told me. Most people don't realize they speak in emotion, so that they'll have already told me what their problem is in the first 10 minutes. And within 45 minutes, I could pretty much tell you whether you're going to be successful or not, because of the language of what you can and can't do, just by listening to when everyone says, well, I can't do this, I have this, this is why I don't do this. Then I know what their fears are, I know what their limitations are, and I know what the culture of their own mind is, if you like.
Yeah.
It's just a skill that I've learned over years from going on this deep dive of learning everything that we try and learn to help ourselves and help others get past. Everything with me solution focused. I maybe come from a personal bias of I'm not sure therapy can work. Just keep talking about your problems for years and years and years without getting a resolution. So I would definitely say that I'm a solution focused coach. which is what I do. And I help businesses understand that as well. So I do trainings with businesses.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
And a lot of it then becomes about belief as well, in what you believe, I guess.
The biology of belief is I think a powerful concept is, and you hear metaphors by gurus or on things, and I'm like, that is literally fact right there. And it's always the one about the fleas in a jar. Put 100 fleas in the jar and put the lid on it, and watch the fleas jump till they can. Bearing in mind, fleas can jump 100 times their own height. So if you put a jar that's 6 inches, and they can generally jump 10 feet.
Yep.
Put a jar lid on and watch all the fleas stop jumping because they've hurt their heads. Take the lid off and then watch the rest of the culture of the fleas never ever jump past the lid, the ceiling that they were given. They were told by their parents, don't jump that high because you'll bang your head, you'll get hurt. So then the next culture of fleas come along. They don't ever jump above the jar lid. And then that's mindset, that's belief. And we don't understand how we are constantly programmed with what we should believe and what we shouldn't believe. And half the beliefs that we have are not real.
Yeah, big time.
They're not real. It's from somebody else's story. You might have seen some on TikTok. You might have seen your auntie say, oh, I remember this one time this happened. Then we just take it on and think, I read. My dad, I've said this in a previous podcast, is my dad told me, oh, don't touch that switch because it'll blow the central heating off. So don't ever touch that switch. You can touch this switch, but you can't touch that switch. On the side of the house, if I ever went to lean close to him, Dad's like, oh, stay away from that switch. I've told you, if you flick that switch, the central heating will blow off the side of the house. True story. So I was like, okay, I'll not touch the switch. So I went home after about 10 years. I think when my dad was moving house and stuff like that. And I went, oh, Dad, stay away from the switch. He was like, why do you want to stay away from the switch? It just turns the heat up on the central heat. And I'm like, for years you told me don't touch the switch because it'll blow off the side. Oh, I just told you that because I didn't want to put the heat up because it was going to cost money. I'm like, are you fucking shitting me? He was like, no. So I, for 10 years, never touched that switch.
Mm-hmm.
It just turned the heating on. And he didn't want to pay for it. This is how beliefs are given to us.
And I think I love that story. I think it's really cool. And
it's true as well.
But it shows you how it can affect your ambition, and I think guilty as well that you take advice from people around you. Why? Because you trust them. But are they the best person to take advice from? And I do think that friends, family, they all want you to do well. They all want you to do well. Just not better than them.
Well. Just not better than them until you do well. You're right.
So that they want to kind of, I want you to do really well, just because if you do so well, you make me look bad. If your review goes stratospheric, you're like, so I want you to do really well, but just
not as good as me. I love that. That's very powerful. And another thing, when you're taking advice from people, remember that most people will give you advice from what they didn't do well at. Or don't do this because this is what will happen. So then you're listening to what didn't work well for you, but that was just you didn't know what you were doing. So now I've got the same belief of, oh, I can't do that because this person, he had that. So, I'm going to have that struggle. No, not at all. That person. So everybody will tell you why not to do something because of their traumatic experience that happened to them. But it doesn't mean to say that their traumatic experience is your traumatic experience.
So can you believe what you're doing now you could have been doing this now, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, to think what you're doing
not
now?
Without the failure and that, do you know, not without the negative, no, not with it was that the one thing that I have now, which is one of the most positive but genuinely frustrating things, is that I know that every negative has a positive. It doesn't matter what the negative is, whether it's severe trauma, whether it's just messing up tomorrow. Every negative, business crashes tomorrow. Every negative has a positive. You just have to find it. And someone said, well, how do you say that if a child's got leukemia? I get it, it's horrible, but there'll be one positive because of that we need to find so that we can make that not happen again. The Titanic sunk because they didn't have enough life jackets and lifeboats. But we have this catastrophic, horrible thing that we now know every ship needs more boats and life jackets. There's a positive. So because the Titanic sunk, we now have these ships that are built better, more survival things on them. A ship had a fire. It was a terrible fire. What did they learn from that fire? We now need to have low-level lighting strips because everybody's got to go down on the floor, so now we can know how to get out and navigate. Every negative has a positive. Doesn't mean to say we dismiss the negative. We have to know what the positive is. And I think that's what I do as a coach when I'm working with clients, because it does see a lot of my clients do have complex trauma, is we go back to that moment and look for, without saying, what was the positive about this? Let's look at that again and see if we can see from a different angle, and then you'll see how your nervous system resets and goes where it needs to. And I think that's...
Sounds simple to do, but probably very hard to do it on yourself. You need somebody with perspective. We can never underestimate the power of perspective, because the power of what's happened to us in that moment came from the way we were made to feel by somebody, but we didn't know what the bigger picture was. The second we move ourselves from that's how we were made to feel there to let's have a look at it from this angle, let's have a look at it from this angle, and let's have a look at it from this angle. How does every one of those make you feel? Oh, well, that position doesn't make me feel as bad. Right, let's look at it from that position. Oh, shit, I haven't realized, because we didn't have the ability to be able to move around and look at each. And I think that's the power of mind management. I do that with businesses. I do that with staff. I do that with employees. A couple of my clients are teenagers that have actually really not been doing well. But I've also got a couple of business owners. I don't do business and strategy with them in any way whatsoever. Mark, trust me, you'd be getting the phone call. If they ever ask me, oh, what about this? And I'm like, no, you need to speak to Mark. Let me help you deal with your trauma so I can help you not live in resentment, not live in that place of distrust. I mean, just the place of distrust would create bad culture. Bringing it back to what we talked about, that would bring down the culture. And I've worked with business. I went in to do a chat with the business, and the people, just the directors, not the owner, was what's the problem? Went trust. Straight away, trust. They knew it. But one of your values is trust. They went, that's bullshit. I'm telling you now, he has no trust in anything that we do. And that was in the first 5 minutes of being within the business, a huge business in Edinburgh. And I was like, this is not for me, is it? They went, well, we'll try and get you in, Cuddy, but fucking pointless, because that's not going to change. I was like, right, okay, fair enough. So, yeah, that's... So in terms of what you do and some of the outcomes you get, yes. The question to you then is, do you enjoy it?
I love it. I love it. And the why. The why is, if I had such a horrible part in my life and I can turn that into a story that will help others go on their journey of, I don't need to be there, then that's extremely empowering. Contributions are huge for me. Community is big for me. And trust. I'll be honest with you, trust. And trust generally is one of the ones that fucks me up on the most time, because not a lot of other people have that. Not a lot of people have that. And if I'm not trusted, it actually irks me. It triggers me, Mark, to be fair. So that's the why. The why is, I don't think we need to struggle as much as we need to think we have to struggle. And to be a person that's got those skills, I think that's powerful.
So I asked you the question, do you enjoy what you do? I didn't need to ask you that question, because I can see the energy in you. Because you enjoy it, clearly.
I love it.
I mean, it's a silly question to ask, but it's an important one.
The self-awareness is when in the part of the podcast we were talking, you went, there's some people that light up the room. I smiled, because I will light up every room the second I walk into it. And I know I do. And I love it. I love having the skills to light up every room. But with the light that I cast, there's always going to be some shade. And it's the people that in the shade that can't handle a shade are what drag me down. And they're the drains. And that's why I like being a fountain. And on that bombshell, Mark, I think we'll wrap it up.
Thank you very much.
I think that was a great way. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much for asking questions and getting into the mind of Cuddy. I appreciate that.
That's great. Thank you. It's been an enjoyable, however long it's been, hour or whatever it is.
It has. The podcasts are getting longer and longer. I've realised they are. The conversations are going the way they need to. Look, Mark, thank you very much for being on the Mind Management Mentors podcast. Culture, just right underneath the power of profitability and cash flow. And having Mark around to help you change that culture to be able to drive better results and those positive emotions is going to be an absolute game changer for a lot of businesses. Mark, is there anything you would like to say before we sign off?
I don't think so. Thank you very much for the conversation. It's been brilliant.
Not a problem at all, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure. As always, big love from Cuddy, and I will see you on the next episode of the Mind Management Mentors podcast.